Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast for January 18th, 2024. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And I'm Peter Ryan in Montreal. Mark, great to see you. And the new year has kicked off. We had a great response to our episode last week where we brought Steve Lloyd and Leanne Rollins on to talk about the different CX trends to be looking for in 2024. Certainly, I think that we're off to some amazing interviews as well. We've got a whole series lined up of just amazing guests from around the world. Certainly notwithstanding the one that we've got today, who I know that you're going to be introducing around now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an old friend of ours from a number of his different roles over the years, Randy Arellano, who is the head of marketing, I think marketing and sales actually at DATAMARK. Randy is someone that we've both known for a number of years, and he's been in several different senior roles in the industry in the US. And DataMark itself is based in Texas. So, they're very much involved in nearshoring with people in Mexico, but also they do have facilities, delivery centers all over the world as well. So they are a name that may be less familiar compared to obviously the giants of the industry, but they're definitely doing some interesting things. And that's what I talked with Randy about in the conversation. We really sort of were looking at trends in BPO, but particularly over the last couple of years. So since the pandemic, how have things changed regarding work from home? And how has that impacted on the security of work from home agents? But also, how has it changed the security requirements for the contact centers themselves? Because, we've seen a lot of changes in security for both on-site and off-site people. But also, we talked a little bit about how AI is changing the customer interactions as well. So it was really a sort of look at, what's happened in BPO in the 2020s.
And, you're not going to find a better person to have such a chat than Randy. And Mark, you alluded to something, and you and I were chatting a little bit about this before we hit the record button. In my opinion, probably the most interesting parts of innovation when it comes to CX delivery is coming from the emerging to the mid-sized segment. I don't think there's any question about it. There are certainly some people that will be proponents of these mega deals and mega mergers, but the reality is that I'm seeing the interesting things happening with companies the size of a DATAMARK, or companies that might be even a little bit smaller that are looking to try and compete, that are looking to try and stand out and demark themselves. Sorry, I just used a French word in English, but you get where I'm coming from. The fact of the matter is the innovation and the desire to really demonstrate an enhanced level of capability and really, I'd say, an enhanced level of service offering is coming from that mid-sized player, and being able to respond to post-pandemic commercial pressures is fantastic. And I can't wait to hear what Randy had to say about this.
Yeah, he's got some great ideas. And I think it's really interesting, the DataMark story, because, we were just talking, just as we were coming onto the recording, about some of the mega mergers that took place last year. And we've really sort of seen the six biggest BPO players become just three players in the industry. And I don't think there's that many analysts out there that think this is a really positive thing for the industry. But certainly, when you're a more mid-sized player like DataMark, I think it probably is a very positive thing, because it really helps you to distinguish yourself in the marketplace. And these guys, one of the things I noticed mostly about them is that they've never lost a client. And they have clients going back decades. If you look at their relationship with FedEx, I think it's been going for about 33 years now. So, this is a BPO that basically, once they're in, they really become a partner. And I think that you can just see that by their track record.
Well, I think now would be a great time to head to the interview to listen to hear what Randy had to say about the track record and about what some of these secret elements of the sauce are for their success.
Absolutely. Let's go for it. Okay, Randy, it's great to get you on the podcast. Now, I wanted to ask you a couple of different questions, but I wanted to start off with information security because and it's really just because we had a conversation about this a couple of months ago. I know that you're not the security officer at DataMark, so this is not your like specialist area, but it must be something that your clients are asking about all the time. And has the approach to security within your company or within BPO generally sort of changed since COVID, and we saw a much more flexible approach to working from home? So the kind of security risk has changed from just protecting an office to protecting a very diverse network of people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And thanks for having me, by the way, Mark. It's always good to see you. So, the answer to that is absolutely right. As more people, where more companies were driving their workforce to work from home, that created a whole new level of security standards. And I don't mean just here in the US, but rather in India, where we have a very large work at home network, in Mexico, where we have a very large work at home network. In those countries, there's always been this perception, right, that maybe for whatever reason, it's a little bit harder to manage security, or there's higher risk because of it being in a foreign country. And so, um, yes, we have found that the security protocols that you need to put in place, we scrambled quickly during COVID, as did other companies. We're probably not unique there. But I think a little bit of the solution that we use today, with our systems being all cloud-based, we use Okta in the work at home environment that really helps us with another layer of security, of course, through secure VPN. But the way that we've set up our network is, whether your work in office, work at home, it all ties together in very similar ways. The one thing I will say that we've done that maybe some others haven't is we have really embraced the command center principle. So in India, for example, we have two brick and mortar locations, Mumbai, Chennai. We have work at home employees in every region of India. At each of our brick and mortar, we have a true command center that's set up a little bit like a stadium, where we have all departments, whether that be HR, quality, operations, in the command center, watching and monitoring all of our work at home employees 24/7. So by doing these things, I think that companies can really embrace security in a work at home environment. Brick and mortar, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think we got into that conversation because you were telling me about some of the clients that you work with really value security very highly, and they require people to be present in the office rather than allowing remote working. So, how do you manage the security for that? I mean, if you're looking at the people that actually have to work in the contact center, I mean, are you doing more than just ID badges and that's it?
Yeah, we are. So we have, and some, you have a good point. Some of our clients, which I really can't mention by name, but some of them are over and above when it comes to security, and it makes sense why. So yes, we do have more than badge access. We have, in some cases, we do have security personnel at the sites that are helping us monitor that. But there are some production areas where we have a staging area where you badge in, you get permission, and then you're standing in a holding room, and then you wait until you get permission to go through the second door, and then you're finally into security with video and everything else that goes along with that. And that's because we still manage millions of pieces of mail, if you can believe people still use mail, pen and paper, but we still manage millions of pieces of mail monthly. And so with that data in that format, right? So it's not all digitized, it can't be redacted, it is full on information. Therefore, we have to have a higher level of security for our clients where we process that type of paper.
Yeah, it's interesting that people are still writing letters to companies. Like they're literally writing to customer service for help.
Oh, you'd be surprised. And filling out forms.
Mm.
We have we get the most random things in these envelopes. It might be somebody who is sending, I don't know, a note to their bank about question, or it's a payment voucher, and then they include in it, oh, by the way, here are photographs of my auto insurance claim. I think you guys were asking for that as well. So you open up this envelope and you just have no idea what's going to be in there. But the PII, the personal information that's contained, is really the challenge, because again, it's written and can't be redacted, and therefore we need better physical security in our sites.
Okay, yeah, that's understandable. You mentioned that you've got some significant work at home networks of people in places outside the US, so Mexico and India, I think you just mentioned a minute ago. Have you found then that in those markets, the use of work at home, like what are the key benefits for you? I mean, is it that you can like ramp up really quickly, or you can find talent without worrying about whether they're in commuting distance of a contact center or not?
Yeah, Mark, great question. I think it's all of those things, right? But I should start by saying that one of the benefits of the 2020 situation that happened is many of the countries that we outsource to, that we consider offshore, whether that be India or nearshore Mexico, they really did a good job of ramping up their infrastructure. The country did, so that individuals can now work at home. So, for example, in India, it wasn't always possible because it was it was difficult to find an ISP that had enough bandwidth for a financial services client of ours to be able to access all of their cloud-based systems, in addition to the telephony and chat windows and everything else that we support. But with 2020, we found that countries really did build their infrastructure. So that's the basis for what I'm about to answer for you. And yes, it has helped us immensely to have these command centers where we can find work at home individuals. For example, in Mexico, we have employees in every state in Mexico. Yet we only have two sites, one in Juarez and one in Chihuahua. Those are both command center sites. So those remote employees that are in the states where they aren't as populated, there aren't competitors in the contact center or BPO space, we can find some really fantastic employees. We retain them for much greater periods of time. They're very happy to be working in the work at home environment, to have that type of flexibility. And we've just seen a lift in everything from performance, as I said, to retention, therefore more knowledge gain, and our clients couldn't be happier. But it's really helped us out immensely. I would sum it up in this way: our ability now to go to these more remote locations in other countries to find high quality employees that don't have contact center or BPO job opportunities locally, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's sort of, it really like taps into a whole seam of people that you would never have been able to hire before.
Right. You got it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, before DataMark, I remember that you were working with a BPO that focuses on very small contracts, and the idea was, to take small contracts but deliver the kind of quality that much bigger BPO could provide. And that kind of goes to the heart of an ongoing debate in the whole CX world, and that is, when you are a customer service director and you need to find a BPO partner, you will have a big wide range of companies from all over the world offering their services. But how do you weigh up the choice between going for the big ones that, the big guys that we all know that are, based in over 100 countries and with hundreds of thousands of agents? Obviously, they're going to have the processes in place, and they've already got a team in place, and, they have the security in place. But in contrast, you can go with a specialist that's much smaller, is maybe more responsive, more agile, more flexible. How do people weigh up this kind of decision, based on your own experience and the clients that you talk to?
Yeah, it's very complex, isn't it? Right? Because I think it's no different, maybe, to some degree, than it has been for years. When I first got into this industry in 1994, there was always the case of, do I go with the big shop where I'm a small fish in a big pond, but they have possibly some technologies or things that the smaller shops don't offer. And I think the one thing that has changed is access to technology. So, for example, here at DataMark, we are considered a mid-size, smaller to mid-size BPO provider, family held, privately held, and so the last two new clients that we brought on have both left the larger companies because they didn't feel like they were getting the level of attention that they would like to have. Prior to joining or partnering with those companies, they made the assumption that whether it be AI or robotic process automation or just operational rigor, discipline, structure, the assumption was the bigger companies would have that and the smaller ones would not. But now, with the availability of AI around every corner, the ability of cloud-based programs and our own software developers and the work that they do, I think you find, and this isn't just about DataMark, but I think you find that smaller to mid-sized companies now can compete with those larger brands in those areas. So if you're a company that has maybe 50 to 150 FTE, why would you go to a brand that is in 100 countries and has 300,000 employees? In my opinion, and I have worked for that particular company for about 10 years, you're not going to get the level of attention as you would if you had 1,000 FTE. So really, it goes back to the age old. Now the smaller to mid-sized firms do have the technology and process regimen, all of that available. And so it goes back to your need. If you have a smaller need, maybe you're a startup, maybe you're a mid-size, your needs are mid-size, why not go with the smaller and get more attention?
Yeah. I think the democratization of technology that you mentioned there is a really important point. The fact that you go back 20 or 30 years, you had to go to IBM for your technology if you wanted the latest kind of developments. But nowadays it no longer applies. I mean, you can use a tool like ChatGPT completely free if you just want to experiment with it.
And another example might be the evolution of companies like Avaya, where you used to have an Avaya server on-prem and to use their telephony. And now there's so much voice over IP available that is very stable, easy to use, much more affordable, and has technology wrapped around it, whether it be Genesis or others. Genesis is who we're partnered with in that regard, or others. It's just so readily available now. And I think that's another thing that has enabled the small to mid-sized companies to compete with the larger ones. You don't need to make that upfront investment of multiple servers in your brick and mortar.
Yeah, I mean, following on that theme, then one of the key trends of this year has been AI and how it's been rolled out across the whole customer service industry. I mean, but are you seeing more changes taking place inside the contact center, like with things like automating administration for the agents and stuff like that, or is it more the development of better chatbots? So is it internal or is it like customer facing, the biggest sort of changes you're seeing?
Yeah, what we are seeing is that it's transitioning, and what our clients expect from us is that the use of AI is transitioning in this way. Initially, AI was chatbots, and it was fun. Literally at the time, it was like, okay, we can have this chatbot, this robobot that'll answer questions, and that's great. That's customer facing, and that still isn't perfected by any stretch. It's out there, it's viable. But then we saw AI go more toward the contact center. However, it was really just measuring things like quality. So now using AI, we can listen to 100% of our calls instead of 2 calls per week per agent. We're getting a much better feel for it. We're getting the voice of the customer. We're getting all of these indicators that are helping us understand what's happening during the call. Now, what we're seeing, Mark, and what we've embraced through our own AI technology, by the way, is tools that enable or benefit the agent. So with all of this, if you're a contact center agent, like I was 30 some odd years ago, your frustration is still, how can I handle or how can I resolve this customer's issue in a timely fashion. And I'll give you one example of that. So using AI now to with our knowledge base, so we can go into any of our client knowledge base programs and apply our AI to where now, rather than an agent having to use their keyboard to try to find the answer, and we've all been there on the user side, where the agent says, okay, this will take me just a minute. I'm looking up your answer, and you can hear the keyboard going, and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. Now we have AI that gives the agent the answer to that question within 10 seconds, as opposed to having to take a minute and a half to try to find it in your knowledge base. So what does that do? Of course, it enhances the customer experience. I'm getting my answers very quickly. But more importantly, in our opinion at DATAMARK, is it enhances the workday for that agent. Your agent, a lot of the stress goes away. They're happy. They're getting the right answer. They're getting it quickly. They can move on to the next call. It elevates their experience. And I think to the extent that we can start to use AI to enhance the agent experience, which is still core to the customer experience, I think we're all going to be better off for it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think if you looked at the first quarter of this year, soon after ChatGPT came out, there were endless news stories about agents no longer being required because chatbots were about to take a quantum leap and become so intelligent that we would never need to speak to a human. And this is really only going back a few months. Even, the Washington Post ran a big story about this. And I think that what we're seeing is actually we're improving the position of the agent. We're giving them the tools to do the job better, and they're enjoying the job much more because of that. Like you said, it reduces the stress. It makes them more productive and more efficient. But I think that that's probably going to be one of the biggest outcomes, is that it just makes the job easier to do.
I agree. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing for sure. We really, at DATAMARK, we really took the position of making a conscious effort to enhance the agent experience this last 12 months in particular. And some of the technologies that we've developed have done just that. So I think that's the key. Look, at the end of the day, agents aren't going anywhere. The live agent is still going to be preferred. There might be a few industries that would have a higher propensity to not need a live agent, but they're very few. People still at some point want to talk to somebody at the company they do business with.
Yeah. Sometimes there's that need to connect to a person, and sometimes it's just because the problem is so unusual that it's almost impossible to describe it to a chatbot. I've had that problem myself. I had a problem with PayPal before, and I'm trying to describe it to the chatbot, and the chatbot just doesn't understand what I'm asking. Whereas with a human, I could have described the problem in 20 seconds. So clearly we still need people there to help real customers.
Yeah, that's a great example. And also in emergency situations, roadside assistance, you're traveling and you need to reach out to your bank. There's too many variables now for the present state of AI, in my opinion, to handle that.
Yeah. I mean, on that note, clearly there will be some more automation, though. So whereas before we've seen FAQs and very simple kind of chatbots take away the very simple request, things like password resets, all these very basic inquiries. So I guess we're going to go up the stack a bit, and we're going to see a bit more being automated. But ultimately, doesn't that mean that the agents are really only going to ever get quite complex customer problems? So they're going to end up as troubleshooters, investigators. They're no longer really handling just basic problems.
Yeah, I think that's right. Keep in mind that even AI is only as intelligent as the people that are directing the AI. So for artificial intelligence to handle a subset or a set of calls that are maybe your top 10 call drivers, your top call drivers, what have you, AI still needs to be pointed toward the proper data set to be able to answer those questions, and that takes human involvement, right? And so there's that element of it. And I know that isn't a direct answer to your question, but once we don't understand that, Yes, I think it is going to be, as you described, where agents are going to be handling the more complex issues without a doubt. But I think also there's, and we're seeing this with our clients today, there's some industries where even though it's not a complex issue, it's just a preference of the customer to call in. And I'll give you a perfect example. We have a client whereby they offer, as an employee benefit, they offer daycare services for children or adults or what have you. And it's set up to where if they're about to go into the office and it's 7 a.m. and my child is ill, or I lost my normal daycare provider, I need to set this up right away. That, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is a situation where the call isn't complex, but there's a sense of urgency, there's a sense of fear. Who am I going to have take care of my young child? I don't want it to go to anybody. I'm not going to deal with AI. I'm not going to do a chat. I'm not going to search a website. I'm going to call an individual who I can discuss the specific needs of my child, and they can align me with the proper care provider for that day so that I can still go to work, right? So maybe that's an example where it isn't driven by complexity, but it's also driven by need or preference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit like there was a there was an insurance company, I think, in the US, life insurance, and they switched the policy answering to be automated. And there was just like a customer rebellion because, clearly you've just had a loved member of your family die and you're calling up the insurance company to inform them of the death, and you're getting some sort of robo voice on the other end. And it just shows a complete lack of empathy for the customer.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So I think there's going to be some industries where the agent is still the preferred way to handle even your top call drivers.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, we're just about ready to wrap up, but I thought that given that 2024 is upon us, what are you looking out for this year? Because I think, well, a part of this conversation, I think, has really shown that a lot of the hype we saw at the beginning of 23 has really matured very quickly, and we've kind of realized what was wrong with the media message about how AI is changing CX, and there's like a big reality check in quarter 4 of this year. But what are you sort of looking for? Any big projects or anything you're working on for next year?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a few things. Sorry about that interruption. There are a few things associated with that. Number one, rapid growth. We are poised for growth. We've brought on new clients in late 2023, and we're seeing that continue again as going all the way to the beginning of our conversation, as we see more and more companies wanting to work with providers that are mid-sized, more nimble, possibly, and all of that. So to prepare us for that growth, we need to make sure that we are keeping up with the technological trends and so on and so forth. So going back to what we said, we have the one piece of AI technology that is proprietary, that we built, that is working very, very well from our clients. We have two others in the pipeline now. Um, and one will be released in January or so, and you can look for that on LinkedIn and our website and everything else. I can't really say much about it now, but we need to do that. But also robotic process automation. So that is, I like to refer to it as a form of AI before AI was cool. Back in 1989, when DataMark was founded and started handling these millions of pieces of mail, we came up with technology to help automate processes, robotic process automation. Well, we still use that today, whether it be contact center, back office work, any and all of those things. And we plan on continuing to develop that into next year as we grow, just so that we can provide that to our clients. Beyond that, we might see a little bit of a change in geographical footprint, but we'll save that as the need arises. And then, really, more than anything else, is just continuing to grow with our clients by using the technologies and bringing them best in class. Which, by the way, it's not all just what DataMark develops in-house. We have great partnerships with third-party AI companies. We've chosen best-in-class partners like Genesis and others to help provide the best service and the best solution really to our clients.
All right, Randy, that's great. Thanks very much for the update. And it's good to end on a positive note as well.
Yeah, very good. Well, Mark, thanks for having me as always. I enjoy and always enjoy these podcasts. It's good to have you back in the seat there.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.